Welcome to the Home Podcast. I'm Bill Terrell. I'm a licensed acupuncturist, herbalist, and a holistic medicine provider. I started this podcast in order to share my knowledge and the wisdom of Asian medicine and to explore the internet and the things that are happening out there so that we can add some of my own experiences and Asian medicine theory to a lot of the stuff that's on the internet. In the process, what I'm doing is going to be combining some theory videos with some practical videos and some reaction videos, and I hope quite a few interviews with practitioners and patients. So today is episode number 2. It's if you want to know how this started, please check out episode number 1. But episode number 2 is based on the most important concept of Asian culture that affects us on a daily basis, moment-to-moment basis actually, and that's the concept of Yin and Yang. Now, when you look at the picture of the Yin-Yang symbol, okay, one of the things that's very important to notice, obviously, is that there's 2 different colors. But there's also the circle, the whole of the Yin and Yang. It represents the whole of a system, or the biggest system is the universe, or the whole of the system meaning a human body. So inside of that, you have 2 polar opposite energies, 2 polar opposite phenomenon that are always playing off of each other. And that actually is represented by the swirl of the black and the white. The yin energy is the concentrated, dense material energy. It's the bones, it's the blood, it's the hair, it's the actual sugar in your tissue. And the yang energy in our bodies is the movement, it's the thinking, it's the electricity, it's the heat of the body. It's when something that's a sugar molecule becomes energy. So it's kinetic energy versus potential energy that you would find in a molecule like sugar or fat. So when you're in balance, your body is constantly transferring energy back and forth. You will take in a physical form of energy, say a food, and you will act some energy upon it, some qi or yang, and you will then create more energy, and you also create other molecules. It's kind of a circle of life inside of our bodies that we're constantly balancing out between the 2 forces. When you look at disease, it is when those forces become out of balance. And it seems so simple. It seems like that couldn't be the real way the thing works. But it is actually. So a good example is insomnia. Insomnia is most often a lack of yin. Yin is the calm and the quiet. And if you don't have enough calm and quiet in your body and your nervous system, then you can't bring your mind down into the calm. You can't bring your body down into the calm. So you'll have restless thinking, restless legs, hot flashes, night sweats, things of that nature. So what we want to do is we don't want to sedate the yang. It's not a yang problem. There's not too many energies in your body. The actual truth is there's not enough calm and quiet in your body. Now, there are some people who have sleep problems. Usually they're younger and they're more vital and they're stronger, and their sleep problems are a yang problem. They're staying up too late watching violent movies or the news, or they're on their screens and they're absorbing all this energy. So obviously, if that's the problem, then they need to cut out the yang energy in their life. You can't go to sleep when you have loud noises around you and bright lights and thinking in your head of danger, like a murder show. So that's a simple remedy, and it's usually easy to fix if the person just wanted to change their lifestyle and they get rid of that, bring down their energy in the evening before they go to bed. But most people, especially as we age, it's a yin deficiency. So what that means is that we're losing the calm and quiet. We're losing the nourishment that we need in our body. We call it the heart blood or the liver blood that actually needs to be there in order to create the calm that helps to sedate the yang energy and keeps it balanced in a state. So if it's dark and it's quiet and you have good yin, you stay asleep. And if you actually have those energies around you of violence and noise, then your yin is going to be able to keep you calm, even though those energies like the bright lights outside or loud noises will wake you up. So if you notice, when you have little kids, and actually many healthy animals, they just sleep like rock, right? Once they're in an environment or they're tired, they just fall asleep and they have nothing that wakes them up. And the reason is that their yin is very strong. They're still young, they're still vital, and they have all that yin. So as we age and we lose our yin and we want to replenish it, the first thing we want to do on an emotional, spiritual, mental level is we need to increase the yin in our lives. And increasing the yin of our lives is actually very easy to do if you change your habits. You need to increase Your meditation, focusing on calm quiet. You want to increase the quiet around your household, or you might want to play some music that's very subtle. If you can hear in the background of this video, there's some very subtle music playing that's very calming. You want to make sure that you take away those stimulating noises. You want to make sure you take away the bright lights, get the technology away from your bedroom. There's a lot of people who actually can't sleep when there's a lot of electricity running around their bed. So some people need to move their bed to a wall that doesn't have electric outlets, or far away from a computer or a cell phone. The other thing you need to do is to actually help process your yin by getting rid of all the excess yang thoughts. So a lot of us go to bed, and the first time we actually process the day is when we lay down on the pillow. And we lay down on the pillow and we start processing all the stresses and all the activities we have. That's the wrong time to do that. And what you're going to do is you're going to deplete the what little yin you have, trying to calm that down. So one of the rituals of most cultures is some sort of sleeping ritual. A lot of people, whether they pray or they meditate or they have some sort of colors or dimming lights and so forth. And those are all really important tricks. It's really common sense. If you actually think about it, you shouldn't be able to fall asleep when it's bright out, and you should really not want to be awake when it's dark out. I live in the Midwest in Iowa, and our winters are very long. There's long night times, there's short days. It can be very depressing, unless you actually appreciate that those extra long nights give you time to rest more. Not that you need to sleep 14 hours, but you can certainly have a quieter evening. You can have a more meditative morning, get yourself a good solid 8 to 9 hours of sleep, and you will be rejuvenated. And then when the converse happens in the summer, when the days are really long and the nights are short, you can actually skip on some of your sleep. You can actually have that extra energy you want because you stay in a circadian rhythm based on the seasons. So now on the other part of the yin, which is actually a kind of a simple remedy, but it's very commonly missed, is you need magnesium in your body in order to help calm and sedate your muscles and your nerves, and also honestly to use them in the daytime when you want to. So magnesium is not a sedating molecule, it's actually electrolyte. It's a mineral that actually is used by your body to conduct electricity and to conduct blood and movement of water. It actually also neutralizes acid in your body. And so anyway, most of us become magnesium deficient in modern life. We don't get enough in. We don't get any in our water, which we should get. All our water should have magnesium in it. And when we get to magnesium deficient, our body defaults to a hyperactive state because it's afraid that if we actually fall asleep and we're so depleted that we might not wake up if there's some sort of danger around. So when you actually start taking a healthy magnesium supplement, an absorbable magnesium supplement in the evening, you might find that you cure your sleep imbalances. You also tend to help calm the mind, and you have less anxiety. It also helps to moisturize the bowels, so you get less constipation. So that is a really good way mentally and emotionally of thinking about the yin in our bodies. The other place that we use yin is in the daytime to cool us, to keep us from stimulating ourselves and keep us from getting so manic and obsessive and ADHD because we need a calm focus when we're actually using our energy, our yang. Okay, so the other part, so then obviously the other energy in the body is the yang energy, and the yang energy is very, very popular in the modern life, right? It's action, it's movement, it's lots of thinking, it's lots of flashes, it's fast-moving cars, it's fast-moving movies. And so what we've done in our society is we've oversaturated ourselves with yang. Now, you would think then that everybody would have too much energy and we'd all be running around and we'd all be so productive. But the truth is, when you use too much of your yang, you actually get depleted in your yang. And one of that thing that shows up as is weight gain. When you overuse your metabolism, you don't get enough rest, you don't eat foods that have enough calories, then your body's metabolism slows down in order to save itself. And it also just doesn't have the spark of life that it needs, the energy that it needs, the yang it needs to actually warm you up and keep you lean. So now you'll see two types of people when it comes to that. You're going to see the people who are yang deficient, and they're very easy to spot. They're more tired, they're heavier, they tend to retain water, they have a sluggishness about them. And then you have the other people who are yang deficient who actually don't look that way. They're actually lean, they're tight, they're hard, they're dry. But what you notice is that they can't focus any of that energy. that energy is just basically being used to keep them tight and lean and hard, and there's none of that available for sharp thinking, for sharp movement, for creative processes. So even though those two people look very different, they actually have the same underlying yang deficiency. In fact, the irony is that the overweight person tends to feel warmer in the environment because they carry extra fat. And so what they do is they tend to let themselves get too cold, which depletes their yang further. And then they actually then become more overweight, which then makes them think that they have, with their fat, they're all warmer, but they're actually not. I tell people that are overweight to feel their outside of their body, and they're surprised at how often that they're actually physically cold. Or if you look at the internal body signs and you see that they're actually cold, they're excess yin. So then the thin person that has the yang deficiency, and they're all wiry, and they think that they're hot, they're actually not really hot. They're hot on the outside, but their insides are very cold. So what happens is they think they have all this extra heat, they don't need to wear socks, and they get to run around and drink a bunch of ice water. But every time they add that excess yin, that cold, that quiet, or sorry, the cold temperatures, and they let the heat out, they actually lose more yang. So then they become more tight and more hard. It's a constitutional thing in Chinese medicine that we have basically two types of constitution, a yin constitution and a yang constitution. And when you actually have an imbalance, unfortunately, most of the time we go to the opposite side of our constitution. So a person that has a lot of energy, if they overuse all that energy, they get very sluggish. Then a person who has actually too much calm or has a lot of calm, when they get too much calm, they end up becoming manic. And it's a restless, wired, tired scenario. So, like I explained at the beginning, the yin and yang is actually a very important concept, but it actually has a lot to do with how the body works. Let me see, we got some definitions here. All right, so on a little bit more nerdy level, one of the important details about yin and yang is the organs that are more yin and the organs that are more yang. And in Chinese medicine, we have 12 organ systems. 6 of them are yin and 6 of them are yang, and they're actually in pairs. On this graphic, you can see them. You have the heart, and its pair is the small intestine. You have the lung, its pair is the large intestine. You have the spleen, its pair is the stomach. You have the liver, its pair is the gallbladder. You have the kidney, its pair is the urinary bladder. And then you have this very interesting combination at the bottom, pericardium and sanjiao, or triple warmer. Now, what we have with that, and it's a very important detail, is that those means that when you have an organ system like the lungs, it's going to have a direct effect on the large intestine. And if you have a yin organ like the lungs, they get too moist and they get too damp from lots of foods that make them sticky and gooey and damp, like dairy products and sugar, and the lungs get cold from being out in cold drafts or outside. Then what happens is the large intestine, yang energy, gets depleted trying to keep its partner, the lungs, warm. So you end up having a situation where that person has cold mucus in their lungs, and then they have really cold, wet diarrhea. And it's actually extremely bad condition because they create all this excess mucus in the lungs, and then they lose all this water in their body. So they become very deficient, and at some point it creates a very serious condition. You have the same thing with the heart and the small intestine. Now, the small intestine doesn't seem like it would be an organ related to the heart, but it is in Chinese medicine. We actually figured out many thousands of years ago that those two organ systems are working with each other, and that the heart is the consciousness, the mental awareness, the communication, the heart-to-heart connection to people, and the small intestine is actually the gut connection. It's that sense of knowing, that's that sense of what's right or wrong. And so people say, do you think with your gut or do you think with your head? Asian medicine figured out that those two things are actually related to each other, and they're actually quite very useful to understand. So a good example is if you actually have just eaten a big meal and your small intestine energy is trying to break down that food, you're not going to have energy available for your heart, which is your mind. And so you're going to be sluggish. I tell business people, don't have a very important discussion about something in your business during or after a meal, because your brain is more sluggish. You should be more like the cultures, the Latin cultures in particular, and the Asian cultures that have a rest time after a meal, because they know that if you rest your mind, you actually give more energy to your digestive system. right? Vice versa, if you actually are stressed out and worrying and overthinking, you're going to steal the energy from your digestive system, and you'll get things like heartburn, indigestion, loose stools, constipation. So one of the most important rituals, very similar to what we would say with the sleep rituals, is that your mealtime rituals need to be very similar to your sleep rituals. You need to clear out the stress. You need to clear out the aggressive energies and the bright lights, and be more mindful and more meditative with your digestive system. The last one on that list, actually, that's very interesting is the pericardium and the triple wormer, or the sanjiao. Now, these are two organ systems that don't have a physical part of the body. They are purely energy systems. The pericardium is actually the emotional protector. It's actually the interactions between people. So one of the important details is all of how we interact with people and interact with ourselves. That's in between us. So that's why it's the heart protector. So when you have a person that has a very kind heart and they're giving you lots of heart energy and they're giving you a lot of compassion, they nourish and support your pericardium energy. And when you have somebody that is cold or is vicious or passive aggressive, then they actually damage your pericardium energy. And when you have that happen, you get this mental, emotional, spiritual disconnect. You get, a lot of people who have depression have pericardium deficiencies because the world has taken away all of their good energy, has stolen all of their good heart energy and their mind energy. The triple wormer is actually the hormonal system. It is actually the connections of all the organs and how they talk to each other, whether it's actually the sex hormones, or it's the gut hormones, or it's the cellular hormones. Vitamin D is an important nutrient for the triple wormer energy. And when you have, for instance, a situation where you are under duress all the time, you're in fight or flight all the time, and you're using up all your hormones, you then deplete that hormonal balance, and you then become hard to interact with other people. You feel depressed or you feel anxious because you just don't have any energy in your pericardium to interact with those other human beings. Well, again, another huge part of depression is an imbalance or weakness of the hormonal system, whether it's the adrenal system, or it's the brain hormones, or it's the gut hormones, or it's the sex hormones. All of those depletions from overuse, fight or flight, result in depression and its component, anxiety, which are the yin and yang balance of that disease. Let's see, what else do we have to talk about with yin and yang? Let's see. I think I covered a lot of the conditions that yin and yang result in. But one of the things I try to explain to people is this is all theory, right? But you need to be practical. You need to know for yourself, is something more yin or something more yang? Do I need to nourish my yin? Do I need to nourish my yang? So one of the things that's simple is you actually just pay attention to the basics. If you're hot, you probably have enough yang, and you probably are a little deficient in yin. If you're actually cold, you're probably a little deficient in yang, and you might have too much yin, or you might have the right amount of yin. So if you're cold, it makes a lot of sense to increase the heat in your life. If you're hot, it makes sense to increase the cooling in your life, right? The same thing with dryness. If you're dry, then you need more moisture. If you're dry, that means you're yin deficient. And if you actually have not enough moisture, you're going to get more yin deficient, which makes you more dry. And it's a vicious cycle. So I hope so far you've gotten a good idea of the concepts of yin and yang, and also the importance in our human body in our lives. In Asian medicine and philosophy, there's always these circles and interplays, whether something is pushing something out or taking something in. Digestive system, for instance, an absorption of nutrients and energy. The elimination system, the large intestine and the urinary bladder, or a release or excrement of energy. So, and you have to have both. You got to bring food in, you got to get food out, right? Every animal and every plant on this planet needs to have nourishment in and waste out. Very big problem in the Western world with all our cloying foods and our sticky, gooey foods that create a lot of stasis, a lot of constipation, all of that excess mass, the sugar fat, as it's called, when you have too much sugar and you gain too much triglycerides in your body and you store it in your fat cells. That is a problem of taking in too much energy and not using that energy. It's one of the saddest things about the calorie counting model that went on for 40 years, where they thought that the less calories you took in, the more calories you burned, the less calories you stored. And they never really thought about the real world where if you actually take in less calories, less energy, your body's going to slow down because it's trying to stay alive. And that if you actually overuse your calories, you burn off all of those calories, your body is going to become insatiable and it's going to think that, well, you're always burning off your calories, so I better store them up. So the irony is not eating enough food leads to overweight, and over-exercising leads to overweight. And that's what the doctors were telling us for 40 years. And look at the obesity epidemic in America. That's also a good example of the yin and yang, right? So the yin is the substance. It's the food. It's the water. It's the moisture. It's also the calm. It's sitting on the couch. It's being a couch potato, sitting in a computer and not moving, right? And the yang is the heat, the calories in the food, the energy in the food. It's the actual movement of your body. It's the movement of your mind. And if you don't have that in balance, then you end up throwing off your system. And everybody has a different constitution. So you can have two people that work on the same job, they eat the same foods, they have the same little bit of rest, and you're gonna have one person that gains a lot of weight with that situation, and you have another person who becomes very, very thin with that situation. So you have to understand, and I will talk to you in other episodes at length about constitutions, because they're actually one of the most important things that Asian medicine understands. But you can kind of rule your own constitution, decide your own constitution by how you look, how you feel. If you're manic and you're crazed and you're all full of energy, you probably got a yang constitution. If you're a person who's a little bit more meditative and you walk a little slower and you gain weight a little bit easier, then you're going to have a yin constitution. And when you actually balance those constitutions with the nutrition and their activities, in other words, a yang person has to find more yin in their lives. They got to meditate more. They got to moisturize their body more. They have to eat foods that have a denser calorie content. And then you have your yin people who need more energy, and they need more heat, they need more motivation. They need a personal trainer to get moving so that they can actually be fit and firm. They need to do more weight training so that's more testosterone or yang driven. And so when you know those simple things about yin and yang, you can actually translate it into behaviors. And in fact, it's very simple, because if you actually are wired all the time, you probably need more calm. And if you're sedate and you're heavy and you're depressed, you need more energy. And when you actually find that balance, you'll actually notice that you feel better, and then you try to continue that until you find more balance. And there is actually a lot of people in my practice who, over the course of months and years and decades, find balance by balancing out that simple concept that they need more exercise, they need less exercise, they need more moisture, and they need less moisture. Now, one last note that's very important. I will do a little mini podcast about this one because I think it's probably one of the most important things I can tell you, is we need to create fluid in our bodies when we drink. Okay, there's a simple concept. If you're dehydrated, you need to rehydrate. Now, we've been told for a long time that water is the best hydrating agent because it's pure water, and we're 70-something% water, and we need this amount of ounces of water every day based on our weight. Unfortunately, that's all BS, and this never actually been shown in any study to be right. What they actually don't realize is that Mother Nature doesn't have pure water. Not even rainwater is pure water. And that all of the animals and plants grew up and exposed to lots of minerals and a lot of nutrients in the fluids that they were exposed to. So if you went back in time to when we could drink from streams and we drank from wells and drank from springs, you would notice that there's lots of nutrition in there. There's actually phytoplankton and algae, which is green, and it's actually some really good sources of energy and micronutrients. You have your minerals. Water, natural water, always has lots of minerals, specifically calcium and magnesium, but it also has a lot of micronutrients. And also, it's pH balance. It's actually moving water that is actually bouncing and moving around, and it actually creates this incredible energy of hydration. So when you actually go and you buy a bottle of bottled water, theoretically it's all pure. Most of them are probably just tap water that they're lying to you about. But anyway, let's say it's a really good company and they have pure water in there. The first thing it does is it leaches the plastics from the pure plastic bottle that's in there. So now it's actually not pure water anymore, it's plastic water. And I've tried to get people off of those bottles every time I see one. Get yourself a glass or a stainless steel bottle to carry your water in. The second thing you need to do is realize that that water has now lost its energy. It's been sitting in a bottle, or it's been sitting in a container, and it doesn't flow, it doesn't move. And so there's actually a lot of interesting people, if you get online, go down that rabbit hole, that talk about how to activate water, to get it to move, to use magnets, to use light, and use motion for your drinking water. All right, so then the third thing that you need to do with your water is you have to put something in it. You have to replenish the way it's supposed to be in nature. And so two things that are important, a combination of electrolytes and something that has some light and color. Okay, now some people, they might put a little green powder in their water. That would actually be quite good for their drinking water, as long as it's an organic powder. It's a little bit more work. You have to make sure that you're carrying that big old jug around all the time to hydrate it. And then you have another situation where you can put some minerals in it. There are different companies that produce these little drops of minerals. There's actually a lot of companies now that are making these tablets and powders for electrolyte drinks. I don't actually believe in much of those because I think they're basically just chemicals, and they're probably not as clean as they say they are. So I tend to steer people away from produced powders for electrolytes. They also always have stevia in them, which is not actually a natural substance. So what I recommend, though, is a very simple thing, and it's actually very light and easy to carry. It's the wild berry zinger, or any of the zinger teas from Celestial Seasoning. And what you do is you take a tea bag and you drop it in your filtered water, and over the course of a few minutes, it turns into tea water. That's what this is right here. It's one of my favorite things. And you'll notice immediately, if you stop drinking plain water and you start drinking the tea water, you'll be more hydrated, you'll be less thirsty, and you'll actually urinate a lot less. So give it a try. You'll be amazed at how well it works. And in the process, you'll be balancing out your yin and your yang. So thank you for this podcast, being with me. I'm in the process of creating a lot of different videos, and I really look forward to hearing comments from people. I am running this podcast through the Substack app. It's a good way for creators to control the audience that they have and monetize their information without having to have advertisers, and I will not ever have any advertisers in this channel. Now, of course, I also am a practitioner, and I have a clinic, and I have an online herbal store, so please feel free to check out the online herbal store. There's a lot of great herbs. We also offer consultations if you don't know which one you need to buy or to use. And then if you like what I'm doing with the podcast, please sign up to be a paid subscriber. One of the biggest benefits to that is I'm going to allow those people to comment and ask questions, and I'm going to actually try to interact with them as much as possible. I want to create content that people want. I want to answer questions, very similar to what I do in my practice. And so in order to obviously afford to do that and have time, I need to have some reimbursement of money. So please, if you can, it's a small amount of money, sign up for a monthly subscription or yearly subscription. I'd really appreciate it. So anyway, thank you very much for listening, and welcome home.